Hello, my friends. My name is Jack Descartes, and this is Sentinel Circle. Please, if you like my content, like and subscribe. Be sure to click the bell notification. If you have a story, you want to comment something, whatever, please comment down below or send me an email. I listen to all. Thank you for being here today. I can't express my gratitude enough. So, I have a comment that I wanted to bring up, and I will admit two things. One is it was negative, and I did state in many videos that I take comments positive and negative, and this one happened to be negative. That's for one. Two is the reason why I did not read this one sooner is because it was actually held in so on YouTube, there's a place that holds potentially inappropriate comments, and I'm gonna set up so that way it can appear below me. It can hide inappropriate comments unless I decide to do something, and after 60 days, it auto deletes. And I think the reason why a lot of people don't see their comments online is because of this reason. For my channel, I have strict moderation simply because even though I want people to engage and talk, I want it to be respectful. There's too much vulgarity out there. There's too much personal attacks, all that stuff. And I'm not going to tolerate that here. If you have something negative to say about someone, well, don't say that, you know. If you want to debate, well, that's different. We can have a debate without forcing the other person to rage quit, okay? Anyways, so I will read the comment. It's from even though it's one word, it's actually STFU dude 31092, and we know what STFU is. Shut the F up, dude. So already this man's name is rather confrontational. That's fine. Nothing wrong with him. I'm sure he's a nice guy in real life. Anyways, his comment, it was under the video Surrounded and Unable to Escape. It was actually the first comment on this channel. So thank you very much, STUF dude 31092. I appreciate you taking the time to watch and comment. His comment says, "Man to man, you don't need a YouTube channel, just go to therapy." My response under that was, "I apologize, I just saw you were auto-hidden and I just published the comment. No, I am good, I have done it, and I don't like therapy. But thank you for taking the time to make a comment." And I really do mean that. I really do mean thank you for taking the time to come out and talk to us, STFU dude. And you're always welcome here. I mean that. And hopefully, you know, down the road, if you need help, you need an ear, you will seek us out, and we will always be willing to host you. But if my content is not your cup of tea, or you think that there's something mentally wrong with me, I understand that, and I won't hold that against you. Anyways, the reason why I'm kind of glad that I saw this comment, because I wanted to make this video, just not immediately, but I decided I'm going to make it now. I'm sorry about that. I had some technical difficulty and I had to shut down the video. So back to what I was saying, we're going to go ahead and switch over to this article here. Because the article from Medium, and I don't particularly enjoy doing Medium articles, but in this case, this article kind of spoke to me. They're paywalled, so what I do for the articles is I archive them, so that way if for some reason you can't read the article or something, you can at least go to the archive and read it there. And please, if you can, if you don't want to support me, please at least support the archive sites like what is this, archive.org. There's other like Web Archive and all that stuff. Find one and support them. Anyways, so this is an article by a Mr. Devin Price. Well, I think he's actually a doctor. Dr. Devin Price. Anyways, we'll call him Mr. Devin Price for the time being. If he is a doctor, I apologize. I know getting a PhD is hard work, and I don't want to discount your achievement there, sir. The title of this article, if I don't spill my coffee putting it back, is Therapy Isn't for Everyone. And that's why I'm doing this video now with that comment. So, full disclaimer, I've been to about 10 therapists over the years for various things. A lot of it was not my choice. It was either school required because of my parents going through the custody between myself, and it was causing a lot of problems for me. And there have been times where I've gone on my own and I've stopped for various reasons, mostly because I personally did not feel it was helpful to me. I will say that therapy did help in the sense that it gave me coping skills to handle certain things, but I don't actively seek out therapy anymore simply because it's always been more negative for me than positive. And especially as I've gotten older, a lot of therapists don't take insurance, so you have to pay cash. And that's an expense that I'm unwilling to pay for something that I feel does not help. So, and the other thing that I've noticed over the internet is that's always the immediate not reaction, but the go-to. Everyone says, go to therapy, you'll feel better. Go to therapy, go to therapy, go to therapy. And I really think that that's, in a way, it's dismissing the person. You know, it shows that because humans are adaptable. You know, we've gone tens of thousands of years without having to need to talk to someone about it, about whatever. And I'm not saying that people were fine. It's obvious they weren't. But they managed, and I think that's really what it boils down to. Is, for example, I myself have trauma. I don't like talking about it to people, and the only reason why I talk a lot here openly is because I do want to start that conversation. I know that there are other people who have trauma, but I know YouTube is also a very public forum, and a lot of people are not comfortable sharing on an extremely public forum. That's why I say, send me an email. I can at least read the email anonymously. I don't have to say anything. If you don't want me to read your email, you're more than welcome not to say, or you're more than welcome to say, please don't read my email in your video, and I will respect that. it's just, we're going to do a video down the road. I don't think I explained the Sentinel Circle enough or correctly, but what Sentinel Circle is designed to be is there's going to be a point where we transition to in person, and I hope that being in person, you'll find someone, you'll pair up with someone, and then if you need help, they're going to help you out. If they need help, they can reach out to you. I have ideas, I have hopes and ideas and dreams, but this is not the video for that. So anyways, back to therapy isn't for everyone. I did my disclaimer, and again, I don't think therapy is very helpful for me. But if it's helpful for you, by all means, go. Pay that money. Go however many times a week you need to go. Do whatever you feel you need to do. I will never, ever, ever say don't do something that doesn't help you. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and skip down. I don't want to, because this is a lot of anecdotal stuff, and you can read that part of the article on your own. We're going to start on the archive page. It's about 40% down. Oh, he does have a PhD, so he is a doctor. Okay, well, I'm sorry, Dr. Devin. I have a PhD in social psychology, and in graduate school, I sat in classrooms alongside many clinicians in training. I have also taught clinical psychologists in statistics and research methods and various social theories of behavior. And I've been in therapy a few times myself, usually with pretty horrible results. So, this guy has a degree in social psychology, and even he admits that he's been in therapy with horrible results. I'll give an example. This is the most egregious example for me. One of the therapists that I dealt with, it was my either third or fourth appointment with her. My mother is very keen on things like therapy. She went to college for sociology, which, okay, make the jokes. Ha 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 ha. Okay. We got the jokes out of our way. She strongly believed in therapy, and she would always drag me to therapy, and we'd do group therapy and all that stuff. But the reason why she did that when I was a minor is part of the custody agreement that my mother and father had was they could access all my medical records. And she would weaponize what I said in therapy against both myself and my father. And then because my father would find out, then he wouldn't punish me for it, but it would always come back on me. And because of that, I developed a severe distrust in therapists. And I know it's not rational, it's not logical, but the prejudice is there. And the problem with prejudice is the moment it sinks its roots into you, can't get rid of. It's the same thing with trauma. You can manage the trauma, but you can't get rid of it. And I think that's the misunderstanding of therapy, is people think that you go to therapy and you're cured, but what I notice is when you get prescribed medication through therapy, you're usually stuck on it for the rest of your life. And a lot of it is very powerful mood altering medication. And those medication, if left unchecked, can possibly destroy lives. The addition to that is I noticed that a lot of therapists, depending on the therapist, some of them really don't care, and you can tell real fast which one cares and which one's just in it for the money. So again, I can't go. I simply can't. And it's unfortunate, but I've learned a lot of coping mechanisms over the years, and I do fairly well for myself. Granted, nothing's perfect, but I find that I can get through a lot of things on my own. But again, the reason for this group, Sentinel Circle, is because I know that there are a lot of people out there who can't afford this, who really do, even just talking about things will help them feel a lot better. And I think that would be helpful. Again, I didn't have this when I needed it, and my hope is if someone does need it, it's there for them should they want it. And again, I try my hardest not to charge, not to do anything that would create a barrier to it. I want a smooth transition as needed. Okay? Anyways, so let's go back to the article. I'm done with my spiel. Pardon me. Wow, can't read today. From these collected experiences, I can confidently conclude therapy is not for everyone. To put it more pointedly, therapists are not for everyone. Most therapists are cisgendered white women from upper middle class backgrounds who mostly know how to communicate with people very much like themselves. That's something I've also noticed. It's usually women, they come from a very privileged background, and they have some very odd beliefs. Like the one woman I dealt with my mother, she firmly believed that she could see wounds, and she's like, there's 2 wounds here. I sense them. And she put her hand on my forehead and said some weird Hindu chant and started shaking beads and stuff. And I was like, okay, we've officially... And I was 17 at the time, too. And I was like, this is crazy town. And I'm glad we never went back. I mean, we went for the full 10 sessions. It was always 10 sessions I would go to, but once I left the East Coast, I wouldn't have to deal with it for another year. Anyways, furthermore, I have seen how newly minted therapists are trained, and the process rarely has the needs and struggles of marginalized people in mind. This is a Medium article. I apologize. I know that the language is a little modern for my audience, but we'll get through this, okay? Again, I'm reading it too. I'm suffering just as much as you guys are. But to be fair, though, it's hard to relate to someone if you haven't lived a life. And privileged white women have not lived lives. I'm going to be straight up and honest. They've never learned how to struggle, and they think the biggest struggle that they have is not getting into the school of their choice. I can't relate to someone like that, and they can't relate to me. And that's another reason why I'm so skeptical of therapy and therapists. Therapy presents individual level solutions that can work well for small scale problems. If your anxieties are irrational, a couple rounds of cognitive behavioral therapy, they call it CBT, but cognitive behavioral therapy might be able to nip it in the bud. But if the challenges you face are pervasive and structural, you may walk away from therapy feeling shamed and overlooked rather than healed. And yes, I will agree with that part of the article there. It seems like the way therapy is if you can't nip it in the bud in a couple of sessions, then it's beyond the therapist's help. And I don't mean to sound negative here, but therapy to me, even though it is a quote-unquote legitimate science, sometimes it feels like chiropractic. And it just seems like the bigger your problem, the bigger the paycheck. And I feel that, like, a lot of modern issues, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or any of those psycho people. I'm just a man. But in my observation, I feel that a lot of people out there today lack confidence. And I'm saying this as an individual who, I have more confidence now than I did in my 20s, but there's a lot of things that I don't have confidence in. And once you understand that a lot of people out there don't have confidence in who they are and what they are, a lot of behavior makes sense, i.e., and I don't mean to stereotype, but I live in Texas. I see this all the time. You see the guys out there who have the big giant trucks and they drive on the road as if they're invincible. Like yesterday alone, it happened to me twice. One guy was on Highway 35 southbound and he drove across the grass median to get onto an exit to avoid traffic. You know, and he did it with his business logo on the truck. And I'm thinking to myself, sir, you have your business logo on there. And of course, he works in construction. As, again, the stereotype works. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a hat with American flag on it. He's wearing his Oakley sunglasses. He has facial hair and he's wearing flannel. I would not be surprised of any of that. And then I got cut off on the side road. I'm driving, there's enough of a gap, and the guy didn't even turn his blinker on, immediately swerved right in front of me into the turn lane. Just so he could make the turn. It was like literally the last minute. You know, and then he gave me the finger, and I'm like, oh, sir, it's Texas. You're driving around like you're like people aren't armed down here, you know? But I have enough confidence to just brush it off. I don't need to prove myself to anyone. I guess it's because I drive around a lot, but you know, I'm willing to be patient. I'm willing to wait 2 extra seconds. Anyways, let's continue with this article because I'm already hating this article. Let's go down here. My first therapist didn't understand that soft voice, active listening, and asking lots of questions about feelings don't work well for autistic people like me. It's okay. I'm not gonna sit there and shame the autistics. But that's where the coping part comes in. You gotta life can't adapt to you. You have to adapt to life. And if you are on the spectrum out there, I'm not picking on you. Please understand, but you know, the world is a loud, chaotic place. You have to learn to adapt and overcome to it. Okay? It's just a fact of life, and life will not only not adapt to you, but will actively screw with you if you let it. Okay? Anyways, let's continue. Many autistics experience, alexithymia. I'm not going to be able to pronounce that word. It's the inability to recognize and name emotions. Okay, I can sympathize with that, but I myself, I couldn't recognize or name emotions either. I just can't spit out how I'm feeling when I'm put on the spot. Fair. I need time to reflect on my emotions. Sometimes it takes weeks to make sense of how an experience made me feel, and other times I need people to explain my own reactions to me. I find eye contact overwhelming at times, and when someone directs a big, intense emotional expression, my way or tries to emotionally mirror me, my blood turns cold. I would strongly recommend to this gentleman and to anybody here, have a journal, write it down. That's probably one of the big things I took away from counseling is get a journal, write it down. The nice thing about journaling is you can slap it on the paper, you can make it as pretty as you want, but just put it down on paper. Don't do it on your phone. Put it down on paper with your hand. It's a good way to practice your handwriting too. Believe you me, I have horrible handwriting, and my handwriting has improved by taking my time and writing it down, taking 15 minutes a day. I do it just before I go to bed. You know, and I carry a journal with me, and I write during the day too as things happen. Okay? Make it your own. Of course, lots of non-autistic people are also put off by the traditional active listening therapy approach. Yeah, that's fair. Not everyone is equipped to sit across the table from a smiling, sad for you white lady who... God, I'm struggling with these words. Vicariously? Is that it? Vicariously? I don't think that's right. We'll just skip that word. Who tells you that your struggles must be so hard, quote unquote. A lot of men are put off by such interactions, and most therapists have very little training in treating men's issues. Now you see why I brought this up, because not only is this a me problem, it's a men's problem in general. This is another field where we are overlooked. And this is why I'm hoping Sentinel Circle will take off, is because I want to focus on the men's issues. I want to focus on men. Women have enough catered to them. Clients of color can feel condescended to or not truly understood when they get the empathetic "that must be so hard" treatment from a white therapist. I agree there. God. What is, you know, I get it. You're educated, okay? You're very well read. Dysporic and immigrant clients may also blanch at... Oh my god. I'm really trying my hardest to get through the article. If I'm butchering these words, I apologize. I assure you I can speak English good. I promise. I can speak English well. It's just... I'm not familiar with some of the words being said here. I probably maybe ran into them twice before, and I do have issues pronouncing certain words. Like epitome and epitome are essentially the same word, but it looks like epitome to me. May also blanch at being asked to name an emotional symptoms if in their families such topics were verboten. Okay, now we're throwing German in here. Okay. People who aren't outwardly emotionally expressive can walk away from these therapeutic exchanges feeling cold. But this is a standard approach taught to clinicians, one that centers a very conventionally feminine, specifically white feminine way of talking and emoting. And that's probably the antithesis of life in general. Is we're taught one way, and this is more just life in general, not specifically this topic. We're taught one way to do things, and the problem with that is it's very restrictive. So when you run into a situation where, you know, I'm in therapy and the therapist is taught specifically a way to reach out to, you know, white women, it doesn't work on me. Okay, and the point of being a therapist, in my view, or being in the medical field, is you're supposed to... There's a reason why they call it medical practice. They call it practice because you literally are practicing. You're supposed to try new things and try different things and see what works, see what doesn't. It's never set in stone because everyone's different. and that's kind of my beef here is these therapists, they don't choose to learn other methods. They don't want to experiment. They stick to their box. And again, that's why, I'm open to different methods, is because I know my experience is not the same as your experience. And there might be times where I can't reach out to you, but I want you to be able to reach out to me, and maybe we meet somewhere in the middle. This is not going to be perfect, but we can come dang near close. Okay, we're 50% through on the article. It says here, the issues with my second therapist went even deeper. She came from immense privilege, so she couldn't understand my anxieties around money. She truly believed I was being irrational. When I described my trauma to her, she also brushed it off as irrelevant to my deeper issue. I was trapped in a miserable situation, broke and overworked, living in fear that my abuser might return and punish me for speaking to his other victims. So in this article, this individual's involved with, or was involved with, a partner that was abusive, and that partner, as they go through other partners, was more and more abusive. That's what that's describing. If you read the article, it makes more sense. I skipped that context because I didn't think it'd pop back up. This is the first time the way I go through the articles is I quickly glance at them and see what fits and what doesn't. And I went through about 5 articles before I landed on this one. So that's what that context is. I apologize for that. Anyways, meanwhile, my therapist wanted me to meditate and buy toothpaste without looking at the price. What? And people wonder why I don't like therapists. This is exactly why. Go buy toothpaste. Don't look at the price. You'll be fine. Ma'am, I'm always going to get the same brand of toothpaste I've gotten for the last 20 years. Okay, trust me. Pick something else. I'll go buy a pizza, and I'll let you know how that worked. Oh God. Oh, I'm glad we can have fun here today. Anyways, foundationally, her outlook was incompatible with my reality. Her solutions were custom built for people with wealth and status like her. She couldn't help someone who was being pushed down by forces that they could not control. And again, this therapist doesn't have life experience. I mean, we're now in a position where you go 18 years through the first 18 years of your life. You're in school. That's all you do, is you're in school. You do have summer, but with how life is, you're probably stuck at home playing video games or doing some silly stuff, and then you're online at night, either talking to your friends or surfing YouTube or whatever else. So you're not getting anything from that there. And then you go to college for 2, 4, 6 years, whatever. And again, you're kind of in this weird situation where you're going to school, and then you go home for a summer, and then you go back. You may go on a trip here and there, but that's assuming you can afford it, which a lot of young folks can't afford it anymore because they can't get jobs. So literally, by the time you get your degree in therapy, which I would imagine is at the very minimum a master's, you're 26 and you have no life experience. Or you're older and you have no life experience. Or whatever life experience you do have is you go to Maui and you take the tours that millions of other people have taken, and you have not done anything of note or of interest in your life at all. You were never poor, you were never broke, you were never stressed out by things like that. You just have no life experience. Not to say that I have had life experience like that. It's just, how could this woman relate to this man again? And I'm using man very liberally in this case. But again, this is why I just don't like dealing with therapy. This is exactly why I'm paying this woman, a couple $100 a session just to be told to go buy toothpaste. and if I'm being told, if I'm paying money to be privileged enough to be told that, like, why am I paying that money? I'll go buy toothpaste on my own. Oh gosh dang it. Anyways, let's continue on. Even though I don't like Medium, there's some good points being made here. The problem with my therapists were not unique. They were like so many of the thin, rich, sorry for the word, cisgender white clinicians I had met in graduate school. Women who spoke about problems such as addiction and homelessness in a pitying tone of voice, but when faced with actual homeless person, drew back in disgust. Thank you. I'm so glad he brought that point up. I have been saying this for years, is these women, these privileged people, they cry about homelessness, they cry about addiction, they cry about all these problems, but when confronted with it, they can't handle it. I applaud this gentleman. I applaud this doctor because he really brought up a good freaking point that these people have never lived it, they don't understand it, and when confronted with it, there's always a problem. And then we wonder why society is all screwed up because these people, I'm sorry, this really just, it brought a wave of emotion over. These people vote these policies into place, and then they're surprised when these things happen. Again, because they have no life experience. They don't know. I can't fault them for doing this stuff because they are ignorant. But I'm glad he brought this up. I'm super glad he brought this up. And maybe we'll do a video one day on luxury beliefs, because this really is a luxury belief. They really do cry about these things, but they see it through a sanitized lens. They don't physically see it. They don't look at it. They never come across it. It's one thing to see it through a screen, like your iPad or something, but it's an entirely different thing to look at it in real life. Therapists who claim to be allies to LGBTQ people and to be anti-racist, but whenever someone visibly divergent from their controversial or conventional waspy mold, they mock it. Again, thank you. I'm gonna shut up now. They believe the goal of therapy was to return people to a state of productivity and conformity. If someone couldn't work a full-time job and have a conventional marriage and children, something was broken and needed to be cured. I'm going to come back to this part. When prospective graduate students came to visit campus, pardon me. Wow, I botched that one. I'm sorry. These women I need water. My throat's dry. I apologize. Couldn't find my water. Let's take two on that one. When prospective graduate students came to visit campus, these women analyzed them top to bottom and sunk their teeth into every visible sign of nonconformity, mental illness, queerness, or poverty they could find. How can you be a therapist with that bad of a snaggle tooth? Wouldn't clients get distracted? She took 3 showers a day at the hotel. I wonder what her problem is. He smelled like the food my neighbors stink up the hallway with. She talks so slowly, like she's depressed. This article, I got to be honest with you, I was hating this article. I'm starting to like it now because this really does delve deep into, and I may do another video on this one, for a couple of other subjects I want to talk about. These remarks and others like them made me hesitate to try therapy for many years. I knew that behind the placid, sad smiles of empathetic therapists, there often lurked all manner of judgmental barbs and an ideology that saw people like me as fundamentally broken. And that's the honest to God truth. These people see us, people like me, people like you, as broken. I'm going to tell you right now, you're not broken. No. You're not broken at all. There's a Japanese art. Give me 2 seconds. I may cut this waiting out. It's a Japanese art. Okay, it's called Kintsugi. Kintsugi, Kintsugi. It's the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery by mending the cracks with lacquer mixed with gold, silver, or platinum. That's kind of what I see all of you is Katsugi. You are broken. You may be broken many times, but you yourself mend yourself in a way that makes you more than what you used to be. The whole point of Katsugi is to emphasize the broken parts, to make them part of the piece. There's a scene in Man in the High Castle, the show on Amazon, where the Japanese foreign minister, he doesn't do it with like gold and stuff, but he's in our universe, he's a drunk and he throws the child's little cup against the wall and breaks it, and he's like destroying his life, and or the version in our universe of him is destroying the life and all that stuff. Meanwhile, the version of him in the Man in the High Castle universe, he's lost his family and he's very depressed over losing his family in the war, and but he's a very successful man. So when he goes and he lives in our universe, he realizes what's been going on, and he starts to be a better man and make amends because he doesn't want to lose his family again. He's really trying his hardest to build it all back. Anyways, the point is he builds that little cup back, and that's my whole point. Is that's what we are as individuals. Is we are broken. We are broken many times over, but you take the lacquer with the gold or the silver or the platinum and you put yourself back together, and you become a more interesting piece of art out of it. I really do believe that our scars, our experiences make us into individuals that are unique and as interesting as we would be boring if we were all the same person. Let's be honest here. And I'm sure that if evolution were to catch up to that, sure, life could be beige and we'd be fine with it. But life isn't beige; it's full of colors and full of distinct entities, and that's what gives us the fruit of life. So, point is these individuals, not the person who wrote this article, but the women he's talking about, they don't understand that. And it's because they live in very, very sheltered lives. And that's the one thing that makes me angry as a person, is they think that they're better apt to tell us how to live our lives when that's how they live and that's how they see life. They're very two-faced. I think it's a Roman god, or it could be a Greek god. I think it's Roman, but Janus, the two-faced god. That's really what these people are, is Janus. Okay? And this is why I'm very anti-therapy myself, is because of this reason. I don't need to pay money to be judged by these individuals. I really don't need to do that to myself. Anyways, I'm sorry about that. I was too trans for a cisgender therapist to really get. Okay. I was also too awkward, too messy, and too close to the hillbilly relatives from whom I'd inherited my approach to money. When I spoke, smiling white ladies found me crass and offensively candid. When I withdrew, they couldn't see I was in pain and presumed I was an unfeeling robot. When I spoke about my problems, they wanted to argue them away, as if being financially strapped and traumatized was something that could be persuaded out of me. That was a horrible paragraph to get through. Very horrible. I'm going to continue on. I've met a lot of people who have been done a deep disservice by therapy. I have heard from several black and immigrant folks who've been told by white therapists that their families are toxic and enmeshed simply because their culture doesn't prioritize rugged individualism and their family structure doesn't look like the standard white American nuclear one. I've heard from black women who have been told by their white lady therapists that they are too bitter and too angry, particularly about their daily experiences of racism. I'll get into racism in a future video. My friend Kim, who is homeless for several months, was told by their therapist that prejudice against homeless people doesn't exist. No, it does. It legitimately does. That they must have been imagining the insults, discrimination, and oh god, I can't read. I can't even invectives thrown their way. I'm sure a lot of people watch my videos just to see me struggle to read. I swear I'm not illiterate. I can read at grade level. I got the 100 books read for the free pizza. But this one's a little too educated for my taste. I could read it, but like I'm worried that you guys might struggle with it too. If you guys read it. I'm gonna skip that one part. In classrooms, I have heard therapists in training mock patients for having tangled hair, or unusual interests, or for speaking in an odd vocal cadence. All harmless, neutral things that tend to correlate with ADHD and autism. Surprise, surprise. I've taught clinical PsyD students who believe self-diagnosis is delusional and self-absorbed. Okay. They say these things with seemingly no awareness of how difficult it is for most people to access mental health services. They swallowed the lie that an identity doesn't exist until someone with expensive university credentials comes and observes it. This article is like opening a doorway, even if it's not fully opening. It's opening the doorway to like solving all of life's problems right now. Like this should be like mandated reading for people in our group, because these people literally live and breathe this kind of stuff. You know, people in these programs, they legitimately believe this stuff unironically. I have to keep these experiences in mind when people reach out to me asking for advice on how to find an affirming therapist. Often my answer is be careful and don't get your hopes up. And again, that's the other issue with therapy, is you got to find someone who matches with you. You know, you can't just walk in and assume you're going to click. Anyways, I'll stop. Let's continue. I've also met many health practitioners who are working desperately to swim against this tide. There are Black, brown, and indigenous therapists who are working desperately to decolonize their practice. Okay, that's fine. There are queer therapists who affirm their patients' identities and call into question all their professional norms that equate to health and stability with gender conformity. There are social workers who are acutely aware of how to state leverages power and... Pardon me, I gotta reread that. There are social workers who are acutely aware of how the state leverages power and violence against people of color and people in poverty, who recognize that a few therapy sessions can't undo a lifetime of abuse. I know marginalized people who have found great therapists. It's not always a hopeless pursuit. Still, I know that the very foundations of psychology and psychiatry are racist, sexist, transphobic, and ableist to the core. Again, we've discovered that this guy is trans, and this is on Medium. I apologize. I know that these bigotries bleed into who gets to become a therapist and how new therapists are trained. I know that mental health is in part defined by functioning, which is to say the person's ability to work. Fair. I'll give him that. I know that it's impossible for a social worker to be in charge of whether a client gets to see their children ever again and to treat that patient's mental health at the same time. I know there is not one single therapist in the entire Chicago area who is trained in working with autistic adults. I'm not going to even touch that one right now. How much more of this? Because I don't want to be... Okay, we got a couple of paragraphs left, so I'll just finish this article and then we'll get into final thoughts here. I have heard hundreds of horror stories of ineffective system-justifying therapists, and I have seen firsthand how bad therapists get made, so I can't chalk it up to a few bad apples. The barrel rots the apples. The barrel selects the apples that are predisposed to rot. The barrel hates apples that come in different shapes and colors. The barrel is inaccessible to most apples, yet being inside the barrel is how appleness has come to be defined. That paragraph could be applied to many different professionals, not just therapists. Oh god, now we're gonna get into the real Fruit Loop stuff here. I want to destroy the barrel. I want to see a network of community care that cares for people who experience daily racism and transphobia. I want therapists to recognize poverty that can't be fixed by doing a workbook and a childhood filled with... I apologize, there was a naughty word. I had to start again. I want to destroy the barrel. I want to see a network of community care that cares for people who experience daily racism and transphobia. I want therapists to recognize poverty can't be fixed by doing a workbook. A childhood filled with SA can't be undone by a handful of breathing exercises. I want therapists to fight for economic justice while they help their individual clients cope. Therapists who aren't afraid to name capitalism, white supremacy, and the gender binary as the roots of so many problems. Let's continue. I also want to see therapists like me, autistic queer freaks who swear too much and fidget in their seats and know what it's like to see their own minds as inscrutable and frightening. I want my black and brown friends to have therapists they can recognize themselves in. I'd like people with commonly demonized disorders like borderline personality disorder to have places where they feel accepted and safe rather than maligned. As we work to rebuild, I want mental health institutions to admit that people are not broken, it's the system failing us that are. Until these changes come, I will have to keep reminding people that therapy is not for everyone. If you see the wrong kind of therapist with the wrong attitude towards people like you, it can do a lot of harm. Replacing cops with social workers will not fix all our problems. Mental health systems are oppressive, exclusionary, and violent in their own right. I do wish that go to therapy was the helpful refrain so many people seem to think it is. Everyone deserves to have a non-judgmental space to share their pain and have their concerns heard. Unfortunately, for most of us, therapy is no such place. It's just another room where we are stared at and made to feel defective. And that's if we can afford to go at all. Okay. I'm going to quickly fade here so that way I can talk to you guys directly. So what did we learn? We learned a lot. Even though I don't agree with that doctor's lifestyle or choices, they made very good points. Very good points, and I've been saying those same points for years. So it's obvious that it's not just me that, doesn't want to go to therapy. Even therapists are saying that in a lot of cases it can actually cause more harm than good. And that goes against what that guy STFU dude said. And again, STFU guy or dude, please, again, I'd like to talk to you about this. If you want to comment below and we'll have a discussion about it. I appreciate what you did for this community by bringing up the therapy. I'm going to go into final thoughts now. So Graphic, please wipe over and say final thoughts. Thank you. My final thoughts are this. I've always been of the opinion that one-on-one therapy does not help. Simply because I think it's not used effectively. To me, it seems like the doctor in that situation is only doing it to get the paycheck. Whereas a group therapy session, like what Sentinel Circle is trying to be, at least for me, has been the most common, effective method for me. Being able to talk to a group and explain my feelings and desires and all that stuff, and finding someone who not only experienced it but may have gotten through it somehow, or they're suffering through it too, and maybe being able to talk about it with them, that has helped me quite a bit. And that's why I'm trying to do this for not just for myself. I mean, yes, I'm founding it and I am using it myself, but this is not just for me. This is for everybody. The other thing that I've noticed too is a couple years ago on YouTube, there was that whole BetterHelp scandal that hit. And that also, granted, they're slowly coming back. I'm starting to see their ads come back up again. I will never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, support BetterHelp or any of those apps that claim to have therapy, because I don't believe for a second that they have qualified counselors and therapists. I don't trust them. I simply just don't trust them. But with the rise of those apps, I'm worried that they're causing more harm than good. And again, the whole push of going to therapy, I've noticed that that's just a catch-all. Again, go to therapy, you'll feel better. No, you won't. The best you can do at therapy is learn coping mechanisms. And the great thing about technology these days is you can learn that stuff on your own. The only counter to that is you don't know what you don't know. And like, for example, I just scratched myself. Ow. I have an interest in computer programming. And I tried the classroom way, and I will say that the classroom way is structured, and I do well in structured environments. But the problem is I didn't understand it, and I needed more help. And the problem in that situation is the people that sit there and say, well, you can come to us and get help, they weren't there helping at all. And I guess what it boils down to is too many people were just asking, hey, just give me through the homework and let's be done. And, you know, you should be learning it on your own. So by going online and learning, I've struggled with it a lot more. And I know people are saying, well, go make something. Well, yes, that does help. But again, you don't know what you don't know. You know, and maybe I'm too ambitious. Maybe I want to build something too big. I don't know. But for some reason, I've always struggled with it. And I know people who've been in programming for 20 years say they still struggle. So maybe that's just the natural thing. But I'm using that as an example of why learning about coping mechanisms may not be what helps. Because again, how would you know what a coping mechanism is if you never heard that term? You know, the article brought up a lot of things that evoked a reaction to me, and the main thing is I don't want to sit there and claim I'm sexist. I'm not. I do believe in equal opportunity for everyone. Doesn't matter race, color, creed, whatever. Or gender, color, creed, whatever. I do believe that if you can meet the challenge, you should have the opportunity to utilize that. The problem is as we've seen over the past probably almost 20 years at this point, that certain people get certain privileges based on certain things that they were just born with, and that's not right. I was once told as a younger individual by a man that I wouldn't say I looked up to him. The guy was a complete jerk. But I learned quite a bit from him as well. He said that affirmative action was actually it would benefit white people because that would make, you know, if there were only a certain amount of slots for, like, say, white people, well, then you had to work harder to get into those slots. Which I would say that's a very interesting way of thinking about it, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer. I know what the answer is not, and affirmative action is not that way, and that's kind of what this other gentleman was kind of alluding to, is there has to be like an affirmative action to get other people into those positions, which it only helps if there's people interested. And what I've noticed is the main barrier for a lot of people in a lot of aspects is funding and time. You can't go to like a doctoral program if you don't have the money and you don't have the time. And people who live that kind of lifestyle, you know, the liberal, white, cisgendered, and I don't like using that word cisgendered, but I'm using the article's words in this case, white, liberal, cisgendered women. They come from affluent backgrounds. They're getting paid by their parents to go to school for whatever it is they want. My sister-in-law happens to be one of those individuals. She went to school for not education, but like pre-K education. You know, her parents are very wealthy, and she went to school for that. And obviously, she's not going to make a lot of money for that. But you know, when you have your parents buying a house for you and all that stuff, you can kind of have the luxury of doing whatever you want. You know, and your parents are taking you to vacations in Hawaii and stuff like that. Well, obviously, you know, you don't have to worry about money, and she'll never understand what, you know, people like me go through. You know, we're struggling every single day, and what people like you are going through. You know, but I will admit that, you know, that applies to us as well. I could never understand the struggles of, like, say, a transgendered individual or a black person, or I can't understand those problems, their problems, just as much as they can never understand my problem. You know, but there are certain things that we can kind of break bread over. For example, poverty, work-related things of those nature. You know, we can always find common ground. Let's see here. What else? What else was in the article that I wanted to bring up? There was one paragraph. I apologize. There was one sentence that really upset me. It said, the problem with my therapists were not unique. They were like so many of the thin, rich, cisgendered white clinicians I have met in graduate school. Women who spoke about problems such as addiction and homelessness in a pitying tone of voice, but when faced with an actual homeless person, drew back in disgust. That sentence upset me. Because what that basically shows is they don't understand what society has to endure in order for them to be able to recoil at disgust like that. I can't be mad at her for that, or these women, I should say. I can't. It's obvious that they lived very, very sheltered lives. And I personally blame the parents, but at the same time, I don't know the stories, and I can't make judgments fairly. I can sit here and judge all day. Nothing stops me from doing that, but I got to be able to be fair to everybody. That's just my personality quirk. I think that one sentence could be applied to not just therapy or therapists, but it could be applied to a lot of individuals. Yeah, a lot of fields, I should say, with those kinds of individuals in there. And it's offensive to me on a deep level. Anyways, I would like to do a video on that one sentence, particularly, and their bigotries. You know, cis white women and their bigotries. Because, again, I've experienced it firsthand. And I've seen them kind of do it to themselves and to others. And it's offensive to me because they're forcing us to live a certain way and they can't handle it on their own. But they don't have the intellectual honesty to admit that they have a double standard. And I don't know if it's because they legitimately don't think they have a double standard, or I don't know. I don't know. It's just, it's aggravating. Anyways, I'm going to start wrapping up here. I the way that I'm recording now, I lose the time on videos, and I'm worried that my videos are going to start getting longer. So I'm going to really try my hardest to kind of condense down and go. Anyways, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for enduring that article with me. And yeah, we had fun here, did we not? Well, I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. You know, just know that if you don't want to go to therapy, you don't have to. There's nothing that says you have to go to therapy. There's nothing that says that you're broken. You're not broken. Okay, don't ever believe that you're broken. I don't believe for a second that I'm broken. I know I've been broken, but that's, again, the flavor of life, you know, the spice of life, if you will. You know, there's going to be times where we do break as individuals, but, you know, we put ourselves back together, and we are, in a lot of cases, more beautiful because of it. So, let's go ahead and start to close out. My name is Jack. This is Sentinel Circle, men's support group, men helping other men, that kind of jazz. If you enjoyed my content, please like and subscribe. I'm very appreciative of that. If you want to discuss something, you want to tell a story, you want to tell me that I'm crazy and I don't need a YouTube video and I should go to therapy instead, I take all sorts of comments. I read them all. I will try and reply to as many as I can. If it's interesting to me, I will put it on the screen and we'll talk about it. If you are shy or whatever, you can email me and request request to be anonymous. Sorry. I don't have to read the email out on video if you don't want. I try to be as respectful as I can to you, because believe me, I've been in your situation more likely than not. But I want those comments. I thrive on that. This is a very collaborative process, and I like to collaborate. If you feel that my videos have helped in some way or could help someone else in some way, please don't be afraid to share. Okay, it takes 5 seconds. Share that video, and then invite them over. We'll have a good time here. We'll help each other out. Okay. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you spending the time with me. I know there's a lot of content out there, and I'm very honored and privileged to have you here. Okay. Have a good day. Thank you very much. Bye.